A lot of big screen televisions in the Dallas area were destroyed. What an absolute bizarre last play the Cowboys ran out there. Dak looked lost because
Yep.
there was extreme zone coverage out there, and he didn't know who the hell was open.
We expect quarterbacks to solve too many problems.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
May be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
The Cowboys could not, get anything done offensively against San Francisco. What an absolute bizarre last play the Cowboys ran out there with Zeke hiking the ball. Okay, sure. I guess if that's how we're going. I mean, it was already bad enough that Dak played one of his worst games of the season in that particular game, but then you cap it off with this just absolute bizarro play that just everyone's like, what are you guys doing out here? What an absolute perfect ending to a very up and down Cowboy season. But all the social media videos of these guys like punching their TVs, throwing their TVs out the window, driving over their TVs, ripping TVs out of the wall. I'm like, wow, this is how we get down in Dallas. I like it, man. But yeah, a lot of angry Dallas fans out there after they lose to the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, you thought losing and then making it embarrassing at the end last year with the quarterback draw is embarrassing and memeable. Hold my beer. How about Zeke Elliott on perhaps last snap with the Dallas Cowboys getting drilled into the dirt? Hey, at least you snapped it to him. You know, I mean, shoot. Remember a couple years ago when like Washington ran through 5 centers or whatever?
Yeah,
I was thinking like, hey, maybe they could have just asked for Zeke to snap the ball. At least he got it to him. Anyways, point of all that is to say, like, it was an embarrassing way to end it, but it was a pretty embarrassing game offensively, and it sucks too because I think Dallas's defense did its job. You know, Dan Quinn.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. Good Lord.
Yeah, you know, Dan Quinn, like if he gets a head coaching job, a lot of it's going to be because of what he did against this offense that we know throws a bunch of problems at you, and Purdy has played well. Purdy's even in this game, like I know there were some dropped interceptions and, you know, he's gotten lucky for sure, but at this point he hasn't made that like back-breaking mistake, or it hasn't been on the record. It hasn't happened yet. So I thought Dan Quinn did a great job, but the offense, I mean, look, they again fit into this theme of teams that need to add wide receiver help. CeeDee Lamb is a superstar player. He's made that leap. But he's a guy they primarily use over the middle of the field. I'm glad they finally got him some X receiver routes in this game, you know, stacking guys on the outside and winning vertically. That was awesome. But it's just like Michael Gallup was never going to be ready. He was never going to be ready to be like a number 2 guy. And he was never going to be ready to be 100% this year. Like we're just now getting towards like, oh, he had a surgery like a year ago. He had surgery like last February. So we're a long way from him being 100%. And like they went in with just nothing beyond him. So they need pass catching help. And it comes back
to why did they trade Amari Cooper for a 5th rounder? Like what? That's just, to me, that's that was one of the worst moves in the offseason last year. How do the Dallas Cowboys give away Amari Cooper for a 5th rounder? That is just baffling. And I think to your point, that showed itself in this game. Dak looked lost because there was extreme zone coverage out there, and he didn't know who the hell was open. And he tried to force fit some balls and probably shouldn't have. And Michael Gallup could have fought off one, maybe interception or whatever it was. But the bottom line is there was nobody open and San Francisco, by the way, they blitzed like, I think it was 12% of the time, right? Because they just dropped back. I mean, every single time it's like, hey, Dak, if you're going to beat us, go ahead. But we don't think you have the guys that can get open. And also we don't think you have the vision to get the guys open either. Right. So I thought the Niners came in with a great game plan defensively.
I agree with you. And, they have Fred Warner, who's like, Fred Warner getting like running with CeeDee Lamb down the field from the other hash, like is just crazy stuff, you know, but that's the sort of those are the sort of routes and the plays and the areas of the field where CeeDee Lamb does most of his damage, but San Francisco is uniquely equipped to take those away because of Fred Warner and what he does as a coverage player. So I think they had supreme confidence that they could take care of this Dallas offense. And yeah, coming back to Dak, like, I don't know, man. I mean, look, the reality of the Dak stuff is that spending a bunch of time on Dak and breaking down the performance and how disappointing it is, it's almost like, what's the point? Because Dak is still like somewhere between, I don't know, the 8th and 10th best quarterback in the NFL, and he's going to make what he's going to make, and like, who cares? But they're not going to, like, Dak Prescott's going to be a starting quarterback for the Cowboys next year, probably going to be a starting quarterback for the Cowboys after that. But I do think we're I mean, like, he's going to be starting quarterback for the Cowboys, but he is what he is, man. He's 30 years old now. He was the oldest starting quarterback that played last weekend, which is crazy, but
that's crazy.
He is what he is. And I don't think that, like, I think you have to be realistic about that. Again, like, you can't roll Dak Prescott out there and say, hey, you've got CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz and like 50%, 60% Michael Gallup and Tony Pollard, and like, go to work. I think, and I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this. You know, we talk Dak specifically or generally, because I think the same thing is said about Josh Allen too. Like, I think we expect quarterbacks to solve too many problems. I know they make all this money, and I get that. And like, you're going to have to sacrifice in other areas of the roster, but I think teams look at it like, hey, we have Dak Prescott. Like, he'll solve our problems, but he won't. Like, we've seen that. And especially for Dak, because I think, again, he's somewhere between 7, 8, 9, 10 in terms of the quarterback rankings. You can't just have him go out there and elevate everybody, because you got to have guys that are going to help him, because there are throws he can't make. There are, I mean, he never had the strongest arm. After injuries, is his physical skill set declining? He doesn't move and run like he used to.
Right.
That's, I think, a big part of it too. So I think teams in general, and I definitely feel this way after the weekend. I think we ask like too much. We put too much responsibility on the shoulders of the quarterback to just solve all the other problems. Whereas, again, these teams that are moving on from the divisional round, they give answers to their quarterbacks based on the offense that they run and the skill position players that they put around them.
You know what's really disgusting and disappointing about that is that it's like, it's almost as if the front office asked the quarterback to do more than the coach, which is such a problem. Right? Yeah. Like, I mean, for me, it's like, you remember when we were going back and forth, or people were going back and forth about the whole Cincinnati drafting Jamar Chase. Oh, should they have gone with offensive linemen? Should they have gone Jamar Chase? And they went with Jamar Chase. And you and I both loved it, not just because of the whole wide receiver thing, but just because now they have a strength. Now they all of a sudden have something where they are strong, right? Where it's like, okay, well, if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to beat them this way. You know what I mean? Yep. And it paints a very clear picture as to the team building aspect beyond that. And when I bring it back to the coaching side of it, the reason the Bengals have done so well is that, okay, so now they've invested all these assets, money, whatever it is, on the offensive side of the football. Okay, well, now we're asking the coaching staff to do their part and to lift the guys that they have on the defensive side of the ball. And obviously, you know, their DC, Lou Anarumo, has done that, right? But I find it interesting, and it's baffling to me when other teams spread it all around and they ask their quarterback to do more with less, when it's really like, no. You should build a strength if you've got a quarterback. If you're lucky enough to have a Josh Allen, just build that side of the ball up, man. Yeah. And then now you've asked your defensive-minded head coach, Sean McDermott, who, oh, by the way, comes from that defensive side of the football. Hey, listen, he's got to do his job now and coach these dudes up. Like, I don't understand. Why are we asking Josh Allen to do more than Sean McDermott?
Dallas is particularly weird because I think that Dak Prescott has these high moments.
Yes.
Like, look at the Bucs game. He had like the 6th best EPA of any quarterback in the playoffs ever, right? Like, or since 2006 or something like that. Whatever. Point is, he was incredible. And I also thought Kellen Moore called a great game in that one. But can you ever get these guys like on the same like wavelength, or when one is good, can the other fall back, but the other is so good that he lifts the other up, or do they always have to go together? And I know it's hard to parse, right? But like, it just feels like they never are they're never totally in sync. And how much of that is Mike McCarthy? I don't know. But look, it's tough. But I do think that Dak, like, I don't know that this is a referendum game on Dak or anything like that, because this is just who Dak Prescott is. And when you don't surround a guy of this level with adequate players around him, I think you get the results that you got with Dallas this year, which was at times they blew away bad teams. He's such a good pre-snap. I do think what he gets underrated for is he's a good pre-snap processor. He can get you, if he can get you the good first read right away, he'll find matchups. He'll dictate stuff to bad defenses. That's great. But it's when you have to get him thinking, when you have to get him, and I'm not saying he's stupid or anything like that, but you know what I mean? Like, he's late on throws. He's late on reads sometimes, and that causes these tight window throws, these interceptions that we saw this year. So it's like, they're always just going to be a little inconsistent unless you surround them with a lot of great players, which I think is going to be part of Dallas's offseason to-do list.
So again, talk about the zone defense coverage for the 49ers. They ran zone defense against Dak and Dallas 97% of the time. So nearly every snap was a zone coverage read for Dak Prescott. And to your point, it's like, okay, he does all this, pre-snap processing to make sure that his first read is a good read. Okay, but the problem is when you have the 49ers with the speed that they have, especially at the linebacker position, taking away a lot of those first reads, now what are we left with? Now we're left with guys like Michael Gallup who are having trouble separating, guys like T.Y. Hilton who are literally coming off the couch trying to separate over the top. You've got Noah Brown who, look, I like Noah Brown, but he's like a third, fourth, complimentary piece at best. He's a guy that, if you can find the right matchup, okay, you could throw him the ball, right? But certainly not a guy that you're expecting to win consistently, right? So they had CeeDee Lamb. By the way, CeeDee Lamb had a great game, great game, double-digit receptions, over 110 yards receiving. But then who else was there? Dalton Schultz had 5 catches for 27, and he was the second leading receiver. CeeDee Lamb at 117.
Can't get his foot down in bounds either, by the way.
Exactly. And just, by the way, didn't fight to get out of bounds. Like, talk about 2 brain-melting plays on back-to-back plays for Dalton Schultz.
Yeah.
If they bring him back, I would be absolutely floored. Like, do not bring back Dalton Schultz. Not because of, listen, and it's not just because of those 2, brain-breaking plays that he had at the end of that game. It's not because of that, but he's a guy. Don't overspend
other guys
on a guy. Like, I look at, by the way, if for the people who are interested in Dynasty, I think that they let Dalton Schultz walk because he's on a 1-year deal. This kid, Jake Ferguson, he is, I'm telling you, to me, he's like baby Mark Andrews. I love this kid, Jake Ferguson. And if they give him the opportunity, if Dalton Schultz walks, watch Jake Ferguson next year blow up. But I think he's a better athlete, a better pass catcher. He's just a better all-around offensive player than Dalton Schultz. I really hope that Dallas does not do the stupid thing and overpay for the services of Dalton Schultz. Look, them losing Tony Pollard obviously did not help their offense at all, but the bottom line was, man, it was an absolutely embarrassing performance offensively for the Dallas Cowboys. They certainly need to address that wide receiver room. So I think that is absolutely positively the right call for them to do. Try to address it in the draft. I don't know what the hell they get in free agency. As you mentioned, free agency pool looking pretty thin right now.